Thank you so much to everyone for joining the exciting career optimization webinar. We are so delighted that you're here with us. I am your host, Sashini Stone, and I will be taking you through the webinar this evening. I am the Customer Success Manager at One-on-One Educational Services, and a lot of you can attest to the fact that you have been getting those emails from me. As the Customer Success Manager, my job includes ensuring that you are happy and able to complete your courses and use our award-winning platform for a superior experience. So today, I have the distinct pleasure of hosting this webinar that will be, or we will be entertaining our guest speaker. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Andrew Fehrman. Our guest speaker, Mr. Andrew Fehrman, is the CEO of Talent Box Caribbean. Talent Box Caribbean is a boutique executive search and recruitment process outsourcing firm which specializes in recruitment marketing, headhunting services, and job seeker support. He's a certified train-the-trainer and recruiting practitioner with over 8 years of experience. He's a member of the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica and currently serves on the Conference Planning Committee. Before venturing into entrepreneurship, Mr. Fehrman worked for a major cruise line in Miami, namely Carnival and Norwegian Cruise Line. He worked as the Learning and Development Lead and the Learning and Development Manager. He has recruited for local brands such as Kingston Wharves Limited, Toyota Jamaica, Stationery and Office Supplies, Blue Dot Insights, Heart Institute of the Caribbean, Caricris, Conduent, Continuum, Ernst and Young Jamaica, Active Home Center, Nissan, Rainforest Seafoods, PA Benjamins, and for clients as far as Grand Cayman, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, the Bahamas, and the United Kingdom. He's an apostolic Christian, and he's the husband of one wife. Please help me to welcome Mr. Andrew Fehrman.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stone. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get my camera on and let's get the presentation up. Okay. Let's just get this up. Okay, thank you so much. So, Ms. Stone, are you seeing my presentation? Just to be sure.
Yes, I am seeing your presentation.
Great, great. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Great having all of you. Thank you so much, Ms. Stone, for that introduction. Thank you for the collaboration as well. Really happy to be sharing with the professionals that's here tonight, whether you are a passive job seeker, whether you are actively looking for work, or whether you have just joined to gain some information that you can share with your friends, your family, that person that you know that is also looking for a job. So the basis of the presentation is very practical. And I know we have been to many of these workshops, especially since COVID-19 has happened, you know, so I'm trying to make this as practical as possible and as refreshing as possible. You will have an opportunity to ask as many questions as you want at the end of the presentation. So I will encourage you to type them in the chat, and Ms. Stone and her team will be recording the information so that we can address those at the end. So Again, welcome. Thank you so much. I operate Talent Box Caribbean. And as Ms. Stone mentioned, we are an executive search and placement firm. Really, we are a recruitment process outsourcing firm. And essentially, what that is that a company can outsource part or all of their recruitment function to us. And we will operate, and we operate as their extended outside employee, so to speak. So that's what we do in a nutshell. And tonight we will be talking about the resume, the job search, and the interview. So without further ado, let's go into it. Okay, resume writing, resume, CV. You know, what is it, by the way? And why do some resumes get read and some don't? Why are some people being called for interviews and I, who have applied for 100 jobs, have not received a call? There is a splitting difference between the candidate that gets a call and the candidate that is not receiving a call. And so I always start with this conversation for you by saying to you that you should measure where your results are coming from. So if you're applying for jobs and you're not getting a call, nobody's calling you for interviews, it could possibly mean that you need to work on your resume. It could mean that your resume needs improvement. Now, if you are applying for jobs and you are getting calls, but you're not getting the job, it means then that the resume is not the issue, because the resume is getting you the interviews. But after you go into the interviews, you are not securing the bag, as we would say. And so those are two critical areas that you must define, okay? So I can tell you from off the bat that some job seekers will always get calls for interviews because of how they've written the resume, because of the time they took to put it together. And there are some fundamental aspects of the resume that we need to look at if you are going to be getting a call. I won't touch on the neatness of the resume. I won't touch on the fact that this spelling, you know, the grammar needs to be there and all of that. It needs to be aligned, because those are a given. So I won't touch on that. I really want us to look at the fact that there are three critical areas to your resume, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Your resume is your marketing tool to get an interview. It also sets the tone and questions that might come up in the interview. So I, as a recruiter, when I see your resume rather, I'm going to prepare in a way that my questions will reflect what you are projecting on your resume. So if you would have put on your resume that you're somebody with 5 years or 10 years experience, I cannot ask you a question that somebody who has just left high school and don't know what they're doing, I can't ask you that question. I have to ask you questions at the level of the experience that you have projected on the resume. So the resume, in fact, is a very important part of the process, and it does set the tone and the questions in the interview. So the three critical areas that I believe make up a resume is the objective, and we'll talk about whether or not you should have an objective or you should not, the professional experience, and then your education, because those are the bulk of the resume. Let's talk about the objective. Some will say, well, I don't need to put an objective. Some say, well, I like to put an objective. I've come across those job seekers who also put an objective simply because they want to put an objective and they want the resume to look fat. I was interviewing for a managerial role a few weeks ago, and I got a resume came in, and I went over the resume and sent it to the client. And in fact, before I sent the resume to the client, I had a discussion. And immediately when I started explaining what I'm seeing on the resume to the client, The resume, the client said to me, "Is it so and so?" And I said, "Yes, that's the person." The HR director turned to me and said, "You know what? This resume is too fat. It's just filled with fatty, unhealthy fat, right?" This candidate on paper had everything that we were looking for, but when we actually interview the person, it was wide, it was far. The answers lacked depth, it lacked substance. And I'm saying this to say that your objective needs to have substance. You can't just put your objective on your resume because you want the resume to look fat, you want it to look, like it's a full page, 2 pages, 3 pages, etc. No, you need to be strategic about this. So the objective provides a guideline, right? To what you are seeking. It also set the parameters for the recruiter. So the recruiter will know that, listen, I shouldn't interview this candidate for anything else except, okay, I have these roles available, but this is the parameter within which the candidate wants to be considered. So this is important. Now, if you get the objectives right, you might be in for something great. You might say that, well, should I put an objective? Because a recruiter takes at least 6 to 8 seconds to read the resume. So when a recruiter is looking at your resume, they're looking at, one, the address, they're looking at your experience in terms of the date, how long you've worked where, and they're also looking at the objective. So those are the first things that they would look at. So it's important that if you're going to use it, you need to have that. Then we talk about professional experience. Again, if you have any questions relating to that, you can put them in the chat. When we talk about professional experience, we are referring to really your competence, your skills. What skill sets do you have that you've garnered over the years that is important to the role? I cannot stress this enough, that as job seekers, we need to be specific. We need to be specific in terms of your skill sets. I've seen resumes where skill sets skill sets and competence or experience, they're written in a paragraph type of a set format. But what you want to do is to list in bullet points. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit later as it relates to the professional experience. Your professional experience must add value to the job that you're applying to. So if you're a teacher and you are applying for a customer service manager role, you wrote lesson plans as a teacher, you would have marked the register and all of these things. Whilst those were the core function in your current or previous role, if it will not add any value to the role that you are applying for, you have to minimize. You don't have to delete it completely, but you want to minimize that impact, and you want to maximize the skill sets that will have more impact and influence to the role that you're applying to. Okay, and then your education. So what course of study have you undertaken that can help you in this role that you are applying to? So that is important as well. As I mentioned earlier, your objective must be done to fit the role. Okay, you must use this space to talk about your core skills, area of focus, and what you are seeking. So again, if you are a teacher, or you are a sales and marketing manager or sales rep, or whatever the case may be, it is important that within those 4 lines, that you've placed there or that paragraph, it is important that you capture what is it that you are good at, your core skill set. If you are good at using the CRM and a particular CRM, you need to phrase that in that particular area. If you have closed over $5 million worth of sale within the last month, or you have done 50 million within the year, you need to include that. You must also include the type of role you are seeking, and be also careful with that because you don't want to limit yourself. So what you want to do is to put probably an industry or department. So say for instance, and the level. So say for instance, you are in HR, okay? But you don't want to limit yourself to just being an HR generalist or HR officer. You want to look at the VP, the HR manager role level, the director level, those levels. So what you need to put is the fact that you are seeking a senior HR level job, rather than being specific that you are seeking an HR generalist job, because that might screen you out. You know, some recruiters might say, well, she just wants a HR generalist role. She just wants a sales manager role. He only wants an admin role, right? So you need to be mindful of that as well when you are writing the objectives. Okay, so be mindful of that. Now let us look at the resume in detail. Okay, having a well-crafted personal resume or personal brand will get you opportunities knocking on your door. You know, people will come chasing after you. Yeah, they will. We just looked at the professional experience, and that is an important part. Let us now look at being employed for too long. Do you believe that can affect you? How do you put that on the resume? Now, when you have been in a role for, say, 15 plus years, okay, it can affect your job prospects. Ooh, la la, I didn't know that. Oh yes, I kind of feel so. It can, right? It can affect your job prospects, because the reason it might affect job prospects is your adaptability, okay, and fluidness will come into question. How will this person adapt, okay, to a new environment, and how quickly can this person adapt? So that is an important part that I would like to address. If you've been in a role for 10 years or 15 years, it is important that you showcase progress in your roles. So I believe it is a red flag if you're in a role for 15 years and you have not progressed, or you have not had any major recognition or accomplishment. That is a red flag, and it will affect your job prospects. So again, you need to showcase the product. So if you've started out as a customer service rep, okay, over the years, we need to see that you have taken on more duties, that you have become the supervisor. If you are not getting recognition and awards and promotion, something is wrong. When I interview, I look at performance trends. I call it performance-based hiring. So I look at how the employee has performed in the last role, and I use that to benchmark how they will perform in the new role, or whether or not I need to move ahead with this candidate. Okay, so you need to consider that. Then we talk about employment gaps. Now, one thing that can create employment gap on your resume is the fact that you have not completely listed the duration of your employment. I can give you an example, and this is a pet peeve. I get a lot of resumes, and what the candidates will do is to only list the year that they worked. So they worked at Talent Box Caribbean, and they put 2020 to 2021. Where at the end of 2021, right, I'm not sure when in 2020 you started the role. You could have started in December, and you could have left, you could have started in December 2020 and left March of 2021, right? So it doesn't give the recruiter enough information to evaluate you. And I can tell you, if a recruiter cannot evaluate you, if they cannot make a definitive decision, they might leave you behind. They may not proceed because they're not sure, and they will start to mutter the words, I'm not knowing, no man, I'm not sure. Just something about this candidate, I don't, right? You will hear those. So what will come into play is the gut feeling. You need to give the recruiter enough information so that they can evaluate your skills, your experience, and your knowledge, so that they can invite you or say, you know, this person is not the candidate. So first things first, make sure that you have complete dates. The month and the year must be on your resume. The month and the year must be on your resume. Then now, if you have been off for a certain period of time, put that on your resume, add additional space. I need to know, you need to account for the years that you're not working, for the months that you're not working. I think if you're not working for more than 6 months, it requires an explanation. You know, 3 months, you know, you might be off, you're taking some time to do some things, etc. More than 6 months, you're going to need an explanation. If it is that you've taken a sabbatical, if it is that you have now decided to be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, or you've decided to venture in entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be, you must account for the years that is missing on your resume. We need to know, okay, what is happening, because again, we need to, the reason for the concern there is the gap in skill set and knowledge. If you've exited a particular industry, okay, how have you kept yourself up to date? So that is why the employment gap is important. Not the fact that you're not working, but the fact that we are concerned whether or not the industry have left you behind, right? And you know, do not possess the required skill sets and knowledge. So that's important. Recognition and award is important, is very important to your resume. Again, if you have been recognized and you're being awarded, it means that you are doing something well. A lot of job seekers don't play this on their resume. They tend to not put it. But again, ladies and gentlemen, it is important that if you've been awarded, if you have been recognized, you must put it on your resume. Now back to the professional experience. When we're talking about professional experience, you have to list your job duties. And what we see happening most of the time is that job seekers tend to list the bland and mundane duties. You know, I'm a receptionist, I answer the phone, I greet visitors, I smile with them, I manage the PBX system. Those are a given for a receptionist, right? So to make your resume more impactful, don't list the obvious. Do not put the obvious. I mean, if you are a cook, I expect you to cook, right? I mean, if you're a teacher, I expect that you are going to be teaching. So what you need to do is to list the not so obvious. But plot twist, don't just list the not so obvious. Turn it into results and impact, right? It needs to be impact and results. You have been in this role for the past 3 years, but really, what are you doing there? What have you accomplished? What impact have you made? If you're in a sales role, right? How many businesses deals have you closed over the last 3 months, 6 months, a year? How has your work impacted the company? I know sometimes we don't pay attention to this as job seekers, but you must pay attention. You must pay attention to how well you're performing, and you must give an account of those results. Okay, so that's important as well. Another negative that you have to navigate is what I call being underqualified. And this will come up, or this challenge will come up if you're trying to change careers. So you are probably in customer service and you're trying to switch, well, not, let's say banking. You're an accountant and you're just tired of accounting and you want to now move into HR. Now you will be classified as underqualified, and there are other reasons why, but I'm using this for career switchers, I like to call them. Whenever you are transitioning and you want to leave a particular industry or a particular field to venture into another, you have to put in the back of your head that, listen, the odds are already against me. I am underqualified. So in this case, what you need to do is to show up as somebody that is knowledgeable in the area that you want to venture into. So what you must do, you need to know benchmark skill sets. So if you are in, give you an example, sales, no, let's go back to accounting, and you want to go into HR, you must benchmark the main skill sets for HR. So how you benchmark the duties and the skill sets is by comparing at least 3 or 5 job descriptions, right? Maybe it could be within one industry, or it could be outside of, could be various industries. When you benchmark the skill set, I'm suggesting that you compare what is required. Okay, financial institution is saying that you need to know labor laws. When I go over in the BPO industry, they're also saying that you need to know labor laws. When I go into manufacturing, they're also saying that, and you're looking at the job description, they're also saying that I need to have this. You now cannot come up with a benchmark to say, okay, if I'm going to apply to as a HR person and venture into that field, I can safely assume that they're going to be asking for these skill sets. Once you benchmark the skill set, you now need to tweak your resume, right? You now need to look for the relatables. Over the years that I've worked in my industry, what experience, skills, knowledge that I have garnered that I can now translate into this new role that I'm applying to. Okay? If you have questions there, I'll welcome them later. But that's what you need to do, benchmark. It is important to benchmark roles and skill sets also when you are applying to roles. Never try to fit the job into the resume. You must fit your resume for the job. Okay, and a lot of us tend to do that. Membership and associations are also very important. As you can see, I'm touching on some areas that we probably would not have discussed. You know, we talk about the neatness of the resume, but I wanted to move away from that. Membership and affiliations are important. What clubs have you been a part of? What associations have you joined? Why is this important? This shows to the recruiter that, one, you show initiative, you show ambition. It will also show me where your interest is, right? I'm an HR person. If I join Hermage, it means that I'm really interested. But if I'm in HR and then I go join the Basketball Association, or I join you know, something outside of you know, anything that affiliates with my work, they may ask questions. Why are you interested in this? You know, so that is important. I've also listed volunteerism there because membership and affiliation is different from being from your volunteerism. Okay, so you're a member, like for me, I'm a member of Hermage, the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica, but I volunteer. I recently headed up their the marketing for the last conference that they hosted, or I assisted them. So I volunteered on the marketing committee, right? You need to specify that and what you have been doing. Okay, so that needs to be there as well. And again, if it's bland, if it doesn't make sense to add it, don't add it. Okay, don't forget, results are measurable, reviewable, and proven. Results are measurable, reviewable, and proven. If you are a salesperson, you must be able to quantify your impact, okay, with results, with numbers and figures, okay, and it is also proven. So be mindful of that as well. All right, so thank you so much. We're coming down nicely. It is important that you command your career. It is important that you pay attention to your career. I can tell you that Jamaicans show up differently from our counterparts, how the US, UK, Canada show up for job opportunities. We don't believe that we need to spend $5,000, $20,000 on writing a resume. But we believe, and this is not for everybody, we believe though that we need to spend $20,000 on a handbag, on a shoe, on a cell phone. But listen, if you don't get your job strategy right, and if you don't set your career in motion, you cannot get the money to go and buy all of these things. So you should never downplay the importance of a well-written resume. And not everybody can write a resume. I know you're like, listen, I can write it. I didn't say actually everybody can write a resume. But to craft it, turn it into a marketing tool for you is a completely different story. Look at this, we all plan for vacation, weddings, graduations, but nobody planned for their career move. Nobody wants to sit down and say, within the next 5 years, I need to be at this level, and this is how I'm going to get there. This is the people I need to be in contact with. This is what I need to do in order to be here. Nobody does that. Well, I wouldn't say not. Let's not generalize. The majority of Jamaicans, safely, I can say, are not doing that. So it's important that you do that. So the first thing in a job search is that you must make sure you have a plan. Ladies and gentlemen, you must have a plan. A lot of people get lost and frustrated and get stressed out when they're job searching because they only find these workshops beneficial when they're in need. They only find that I need a recruiter like myself. I need to network when they're in need. But you don't search for a job when you are in need of a job. You don't network with somebody who can help you get a job when you need a job. You do all of this before, so that when a job comes up, you are top of mind. So have a plan. Have a primary area of focus. Don't say to me, listen, I have job seekers who would come to me all the time and say, I'm seeking a job. What type of a job? Well, Mr. Fehrman, anything, And I say, hold it. Well, anything cannot go for me. Not anything goes. You need to know I can't help you. I mean, do you want a janitor's job? Do you need to be the VP of NCB? Do you need to be the gatekeeper? What? Tell me, right? So be specific, have an area. What industry you want to work in? Study that industry, okay? LinkedIn, ladies and gentlemen, should be your next best friend. I use LinkedIn quite a lot. So all of you, if you're not here, if you're not on LinkedIn, you must be there. LinkedIn by itself is a totally different story in terms of building that out for your job search. But that is the main tool that you need to use. You also need to leverage what I call informational interviews. Informational interviews is simply you requesting to talk with a recruiter, to talk with somebody from a particular company. just for them to give you information about the company and where they see themselves in the next couple of months in terms of hiring. You need to be mindful of this tactic. It is not shove your resume in the recruiter or the hiring manager's face, or say, get me an interview, get me an interview, get me a job, get me a job. As it says, informational. This can really damage your reputation. So it is about you gaining information and building out your network. So again, whenever a job comes up, they say, well, you know, so I remember Miss Sue, who come in here last week saying that she wanted to just get some information. I think that was a nice approach. You know what, let me call her and see if she have a job. You understand? So that is what you need to do. And that is informational interviews. You must also consider using recruiting agencies. I know, yes, in Jamaica, there seems to be a bad rap for recruiting agency, okay? But they can turn out to be good. Not the lower level recruiting agencies, but you have workforce outsourcing companies. They don't necessarily consider themselves employment agencies. Like us, we are not an employment agency because we don't charge job seekers, right? But we do place people in jobs, okay? So we are an RPO, a recruitment process outsourcing firm. So you see, just as how the people in America are outsourcing their work to Jamaicans call centers, is the same thing companies do with talent box. They can't find a particular talent, or they don't have the manpower to find the talent, and they reach out to us, and we manage that for them, the entire process. So if you're job searching, Talent Box is a great place for you. You should also check job boards, but also get away from this bland applying for jobs. You know, you have candidates applying for 10 jobs, 15 jobs, 100 jobs, right? I mean, at some point, it's going to take a toll on you, especially when you're not getting anywhere. Okay, and you're just throwing a net and anyone respond. Anybody who hires you. You need to be specific and don't just do that. Also contact professional associations. Okay, what association you know of or are a part of that you can reach out to that can help you. That is important. And then navigate the hidden job market by growing your network. The hidden job market is really jobs that are available, but you don't know about them. Like, no, I have job companies that reach out to me all the time to say, hey, Andrew, I have this role trying to fill. Who do you have in your database? Right? And I would say, you know, Miss Brown from down so. Let me call Miss Brown and see if she want to work. You understand? That is actually navigating the hidden job market. You can only penetrate and navigate that by building out your network. It is, right? We say it's who know who, it's the network. So that is important, right? You must always have, and one way of doing that is by creating your profile on LinkedIn. So again, take charge of your career, take charge of the job search as well, and be intentional about it. Okay, if you want to transition out of a role into another one, I will soon be open for consultations again. I've closed off for the year, unfortunately, because of the number of requests that I've been getting. So I had to close off, and I had to turn down about 10 people, unfortunately. You know, but hopefully maybe in 2 months or so, maybe less, I'd be back at consultations. So we looked at the resume, we looked at the job search, and now we're looking at the interview. And it's pretty simple. And I have 3 main areas that I want to focus on. One is the fact that and I'm seeing down here, I needed to have worked in that area. One is the fact that you need to remove the mask. Many of us who apply to a job, we believe that when we go into the interview, we must mimic what we think the employer wants. We must present a front that the employer will find attractive, a fit, so to speak. But the fact of the matter is, whenever you try to be the ideal candidate, you're not being yourself. And if you're not being yourself in the interview, the possibilities are that you might get picked, you might get the job, but you're in the wrong role. And all of a sudden, this role that you thought was a bed of roses suddenly becomes your worst nightmare. Suddenly, you realize that this company is not a company you want to work for. Suddenly the environment and the culture, you can't stand it. You don't want to go to work anymore. Hopefully, I'm not being too extreme, but it is important that you be you. The recruiter must now appreciate you for being authentic and for being real. Okay? If they cannot appreciate you for that, then that's not the right job for you. When I hire, it is important that we look at the anniversary date rather than the start date. So a lot of recruiters, or all the recruiters, must hire for the anniversary date rather than the start date. When you are applying for a job, think about your first year anniversary rather than thinking about when you are going to start. If you think about your first year's anniversary, you will make sure that this is the right job for you. So think about that and try and be you, be real. The next point, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that you must ditch the fake responses. Have you ever been in I've been in many interviews. In fact, I've been stuck in interviews for over months now. And you'd ask the candidate one question, tell me about your weakness. And listen, one of the most annoying answer that you can get, and if you want me to start rolling my eyes and just be completely annoyed and out of it, is when the job seeker says to me, you know, one of my weakness is actually saying no. I mean, you must be a robot or something. You know, I can hardly say no. I never say no. And because I never say no, I usually take on a lot of duties and then I get overwhelmed and blah, 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 blah. Fake, 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 right? Don't tell me about that. Don't tell me about the fact that you can't say no. Tell me we're all human. You're not a robot. Okay, so sometimes and in fact, I can give you an example. I had one candidate that I coached recently. She did 15 interviews, and when I got her, she was crying, literally crying. Her confidence was, I mean, everybody stepped on her confidence. The challenge was how she left her last company, and she thought that, and not, she didn't leave in a way that will be detrimental to her job prospect, but she really didn't want to badmouth the employer. She really didn't want to appear as though she is negative. So she tended to be extremely vague and not being honest and truthful and genuine. And so the last interview she went to, when she came to me, she said, the interviewer said to her, stop it. Don't tell me no foolishness. Not no go so. And I think, and the question was, why did you leave your last job? And she was like, for career opportunities. Wow, sounds good. That sounds delicious. But the interviewer had enough. And the interviewer says, crap, don't give me that crap. Not today, right? Lo and behold, she didn't get the job. That's when she came to me, because she is done 15, and I said to her, well, if that is the issue, it is an issue of you trying to be the ideal candidate. It is you giving a fake response, and it is not finding its way to the recruiter's heart. You need to be honest. You need to be truthful. You need to show up as human and tell them why you've left. Listen, we did, I think, 2 or 3 coaching sessions, 2 hours. She did 3 after the second one, I think. Second coaching session, she did 3 interviews. She got 3 offers. She's now in a huge company as an accountant. Within 3 months, they promoted her as a manager, right? So you have to be mindful of that. The third point, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that you should not misunderstand the scope of the interview process. And right before I touched this, I remembered as Ms. Stone had mentioned, I worked for Carnival, and so I had and I work in HR, learning and development, you know, which is in HR. So I had recommended 2 candidates for job opportunities, and I can tell you that understanding the interview process, where it starts and where it ends, if it ends, is important. So here's what happened. I submitted 2 candidates, my neighbor for a role, and I submitted a family member to be considered for a role. You know, interviews were set and everything was great. There was a test that those 2 candidates needed to have completed. My neighbor did the passing mark was the score to pass was 65. My neighbor got 57 pass mark for the test. He failed it, to say the least. My family member got, I think, 95% or 97%. Passed it with flying colors. Now the HR director and I think the person who was responsible for the interview process brought them on a tour. And so it's a ship, right, hotel. Brought them on the tour and showing them the areas of the ship and everything. And while they were in the elevator, my neighbor who failed the exam, when the elevator opened, he saw a guest trying to enter, but the guest was in a wheelchair. And so he immediately ran outside and assisted the guest, right? And started chatting with the guest. Another guest came in, but they were dressed in a particular way and they looked a particular way. And the HR director started laughing. The other HR person started laughing, and my family member joined in the to be a bagwagon, to be a wagonist, if we say that, and started laughing at the guest. Not distracting enough for the guest to see, but discreetly between themselves. But my neighbor kept his cool, kept professional, chatted with the guest and engaged them and everything. When all of that was over, and I got the update was, this gentleman who failed the exam, we want to make him an offer. We want to do other interviews so we can make him an offer, and we are going to have him redo the test. Your family member, which they didn't know, your family member who got 95 or 98%, unfortunately, we're not moving ahead with her. Right? Typical example of not understanding that the interview process, right, doesn't end when they're not asking you questions, right? The interview process can start as you enter the compound, not greeting the janitor, not saying hello to the receptionist, being too nosy, not being polite, right? Not responding to an email, not being professional. not preparing your resume professionally or having it done in a way to attract that particular attention. You must understand that it doesn't start when you're in front of the person asking you questions. It starts from the moment in fact, the interview process starts from the moment you're out of a job. From the moment you have decided that you're going to look for a job, the interview starts there, and you need to shift your focus and start to think about, what if a potential recruiter comes across my LinkedIn profile, comes across my resume? What if they see me, in the bank and all of this, right? Be mindful of that as well. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on and on, and this is just touching of this is just the icing of the cake, right? I hope this meant a lot to you. During the question and answer segment, I'll talk about Talent Box. If you have any questions, please go ahead and register at www.talentboxcaribbean.com and upload your resume. So as soon as a job becomes available, we can reach out to you, or you can even subscribe to job alerts. And we work with various industries, the BPO, the banks, hospitality, retail, finance, right across the board. And I've worked with a number of companies, right? And I have roles coming up as well. So thank you again. I hope you found value in what I said, and now we'll open the floor to some questions. I'll now hand back over to Miss Stone.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was an excellent presentation. I myself have taken so many pointers. I've had my pen and paper working the whole time. I am seeing some excellent questions in the chat, and I want to jump into it.
Okay.
I want to jump into it. And I'm going to start with one that I'm looking at that I think is quite an interesting one, and I wonder too.
Okay.
So this person says, what if I know that my weakness won't get me the job? That's the question.
Listen, great question. Great question. And that is the concern, and that is why people give fake responses. So never try to cover up, because if you do that, you are not projecting a dishonest persona, right? Because if that is uncovered, it might then be more it might be more difficult to recover than being completely honest. So be mindful of that. What you want to do is to be upfront and frank about your weakness. You want to be to show up as humans, but most important as a human being, but most importantly, how have you navigated? What are you doing? We all have weaknesses. So never present a perfect persona. We all have weaknesses. Tell me about your real weakness, but also don't just leave it there. Sometimes when I'm asking a question, I ask the question in a particular way to see if the person will come up with a solution or with the answer that I'm looking for. So when we ask about that, we want you to be honest, but also talk to us about what are you doing to overcome that challenge.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback, Andrew. And you know what comes to mind is that scenario you gave just now with your neighbor and your family member, and just how important it is to understand that the interview process or the selection process from the recruiter begins before you even step foot into that building. You know what I mean? So how important is it for you to ensure that, for example, your social media reputation is squeaky clean and so on?
So great question. It's important that you have a clean social media, and we all get it. We have a life outside of work, and so I think where it becomes a challenge is when you present more like an unethical type of a persona on social media and posting that can negatively affect the company. So posting pictures that you've been on vacation or that you have a night, you're partying with your friends responsibly shouldn't affect your interview or job prospect. If you are political, then some employers might look for that to see your affiliations and how that can affect the company. If you are entirely against a particular religion, a belief. So these are those things that they tend, well, I would think that they would tend to look for, and not necessarily how you dress. And even though that plays an important part of the process, but I don't think it is entirely the deciding in factor as well. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That is for me. That is for me. I can't talk for all recruiters because it is highly subjective and relative. But when I recruit, I do look at social media profiles at times, but not. It's not something that I'm entirely vested in, because I try to focus on the skill sets, and I pay close attention to references, because sometimes social media is not a true representation of who you are. To some extent it is, but not in its entirety.
Okay, thank you so much for that detailed response. Okay, so our next question from the chat says, can you provide us with a current resume look to help us optimize our resume? I don't know if that's the best strategy, but that's a question.
Yes, that is not the best strategy. And there are many formats out there. So when you are looking at designing a resume, and I could possibly do that, I've come across many resumes, but that is a typical example of trying to fit maybe the job into one particular design and style. What you want to focus on, however, is what do you want to convey? Okay, where are you now in your career, in your experience, with your skill set? And that will determine the type of resume you use. If you have employment gaps or long, unemployment, then there's a particular style and format. So you really have to go back and decide where you are first before you decide on the format.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Now, what I wanted to do was to kind of bring attention to the worldwide conversation about the Great Resignation. Now, a lot of the data I've seen on that has been Americanized. You know, in Jamaica, we're not so good at data and statistics, but what has been your experience? Are employers saying that there are a lot of jobs they're seeking to fill right now? What's the job market looking like?
Great question. So the job market has always been competitive. There is always a challenge to fill roles. There's a huge gap with those who are leaving high school and even those who are leaving universities in terms of, projecting the quality and the knowledge that is required for a role. So you tend to find that a lot of and there's this bland job board posting, and you find that companies tend to have difficulties filling these roles because they can't find the talent. And I can tell you, I am filling some entry-level roles now, and let me tell you something, it is a challenge. Entry-level roles, entry-level, maybe 0 to 1 year experience or 2 years experience, CXC. And we're having a challenge filling those roles because of how those candidates that are applying, right? I recently introduced video interviews in my process. You know, so before I talk to any candidate, I would send them a link to complete 10 questions. And let me tell you something, it's a good thing I did that, because how some of them go on and hopefully I need to cut now so we can get to more questions. How they show up on these virtual interviews, you wonder if it is an interview they have come to. Back to the Great Resignation, many job seekers have decided to step away from the corporate world because a lot of employers have decided to not budge. A lot of employers decided to have a brick and mortar mentality in terms of this is what I have to offer, take it or leave it. But with this pandemic, employees are now saying, treat me this way, give me this, and I'll say, you don't give me that, I'm going to go and start my business. So, and the Companies Office of Jamaica have seen a huge registration this year in terms of new business being started. And it's because of that. So it is back to the employer to really listen and adopt a very fluid business model, and approach so that they can address the needs of the staff members, so that people want to stay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Very insightful. Now, switching it up a bit, I have a question in the chat, quite interesting. The question says, oh, and by the way, she's commented that this session is very informative and goes on to ask, how do interviewers and recruiters view persons seeking a job at the age 45 to 50, especially in a different field?
So great question. There is the recruiter's bias. Oh boy, I tell you. So if we talk about bias, whether conscious or unconscious, it is a reality. And bias is the 80-pound gorilla in the room, but nobody sees it, right? It is a recruiter having a particular candidate in the back of their head, okay? And if that candidate is not matching up to what they have in their head, they would rule other candidates out. But that is not the best approach. It is important that we manage the biases that we have. We have to take a deliberate approach. So what you have questioned is what we call ageism, where if you're too old, you get screened out, and if you're too young, you get screened out as well, right? And so before I answer the question, I need to say that 45 to 50 is not a bad age.
Right, I agree. It's not old at all.
No. It is still a good time. You should have garnered enough experience to be a really strong candidate. So it's not a bad age, right? But there is the fact, and there is the age bias. So what you want to do, usually, if you think that you're being discriminated against because of your age, you want to take a different approach on your resume. Remove outdated information, okay, as much as possible. Dates that you've been to school and all of that. So the resume will be critical, because when you've started working in a particular company, once you put the date, it gives an idea in terms of how old you are, whether you put your date of birth or not. Because if you started working in 2000, I'm going to assume that maybe a year or 3 years before that you would have left school. If you've been to university, I'm going to say, well, X time, 4 years in university, so they can calculate it, right? So you want to remove as much information as possible from the resume so that they do not assume your age. But it can go deeper than that. There is also how you're writing your resume, right? And I don't feel, while it is true that recruiters will screen you because of your age, I think they will want to give a second look at your resume if you possess the required skill set, knowledge, and experience that they're looking for. Right? So think about that as well. So I would say take out the dates to some extent, but also relook at your resume so that you come across as very impactful and results driven. I'm sorry, I'm answering these questions too long.
No, that's very detailed. That's very great. Really enjoyed the response there. Quite insightful. And I'll jump right to our next comment in the chat. Says, what is your recommendation in getting started with networking, especially for a person who have no idea on how to do it and how to start? And I'll just add to that, especially in this virtual world we're in now, how does one network?
Yes, yes, yes. So you would find that social media will play a big part of networking, and in particular LinkedIn. The last time I checked, over 500,000 Jamaicans are on LinkedIn, and the majority are decision makers, recruiters. So if you are thinking about networking for job opportunities, you have to get on LinkedIn. And I can tell you, not just get on there and don't check LinkedIn. Don't every month or every 2 months you check it, you may miss opportunities, right? I sent a job, I reached out to a particular candidate for a bank for an opportunity this year in April because I thought it was a good fit, because I have a recruiter's account on LinkedIn. And after filling the role and finding the candidate, because of the type of role, the candidate needed 3 months notice. We accepted the candidate started, and after the candidate started and probably 2 months, 3 months in the role, this person reached out to me and said, "Hi, Mr. Fehrman, how are you doing? I'd love to talk to you about this role." 7 months after. And I said to him, I responded to him, I said, "This role has long been filled." Right? This role has long been filled. So be intentional about why are you getting on LinkedIn, because a lot of recruiters are there. They may not post a job because it's very expensive to post jobs there on LinkedIn, especially if you have more than one. So they may not post a job, but they might send you an email request. They might send you a message asking you if you are interested in that role. So I think you should start there, and also not just show up and say, I want. Show up as support before you even ask the person to help you find a job. Like the person's post, comment on the post, right? Follow the person so the person can recognize that, oh, this person is not just here for a job. I can tell you, and then I'll stop. 2 days ago, a new graduate reached out to me on LinkedIn, and she said, "Hi, Mr. Fehrman." I mean, has always been following me and commenting and stuff. And finally, she reached us. She said, "Hi, Mr. Fehrman. I just left university, and I've been applying for a job." She has a finance degree, double major. "I've been applying for jobs and I'm not getting through. It's just not working out for me. Is there can you help any at all? Even if it is internship, I'm willing to just start at the intern level and see what goes on." I was recruiting for an accounting firm, and so I said to her, "Well, I'm not sure, but let me reach out to this accounting firm." I reached out to the accounting firm and they said, "Listen, Andrew, no, unfortunately, we've done the budget already, we now have no more money." But then they were supposed to take on somebody in January, and the person that they were supposed to take on was not able to take up the offer anymore. So the CEO reached out to me and said, "Oh boy, Andrew, let's talk." We had a chat. She said, "There might be an opportunity." I reached out back to the candidate. We set up an interview. We did the interview. The candidate turned out to be amazing. Amazing. And the owner said, the CEO said, "You know what? I think I'm going to make her an offer." And it's not internship. Right? So, I mean, it does happen. It does happen. I'm sorry, I think I'm taking too long.
We would like to hear your feedback. And, I just wanted to validate what you said about LinkedIn for the person who asked about networking. I have been following Mr. Fehrman on LinkedIn long before he knew who I was. So I was following him prior to. And it just so happened that one day I ended up in an interview and he was the interviewer. When he introduced himself, I said, "Oh, I'm already aware of you. I was following you on social media."
Yeah.
So it helps with the networking process. And I think what it did for me was to let me know what kind of person this is, what are the things they post. So I believe I had an advantage there, with in the interview, because I was aware of the mindset. So please go and create your profiles on LinkedIn. You will not regret it. So we have another question from the chat. Do you also find jobs in the government sector?
Great question. So not without giving too much information, it depends on the job, but I am in I am in discussions for a government contract, hopefully next month. Yeah, next month or so. I'm not sure. But if you keep close, I might I might be posting. I have worked with other government entities before, but this might be a huge contract. All right, so make sure you have your resumes uploaded, and you're following us we're on all social media platforms at Talent Box Caribbean.
Okay, great. All right, so the next question I have says, should I list the duties of my previous job on my resume?
Great question. As I've said, in back to the professional experience, you want to move away from the mundane listing of the duties. I'm not sure your demographic, if this person is experienced or not, but what you want to do is don't list the obvious. Do not list the obvious, right? List in bullet points, but also remember that results are measurable, reviewable, proven. So show me how, rather than show me. What impact have you made? What was the results? How have you, since you joined the company, what difference have you made? And so you want to use that more so than the job duties. Critical skill sets and core duties that you think are critical to the role that you are applying to, don't leave those out, because what some recruiters will do is to look through the duties and compare and contrast to see, okay, what have you been doing in this role that aligns closely to what I'm trying to fit you to. So that has its place as well. But again, for the majority of the time, it is results and impact that you want to focus on.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And the next question, someone has said, can I submit my resume to Talent Box to help my job search?
Oh boy, that is something that we've done, and it's a service that we offer, but we have decided not to do that. No, because we're very busy. We have a number of clients that we're working on, so we had to pause the resume writing, the interview coaching. To be quite frank, I said within about a month or so, I had to turn down at least 10 people. And last week I had to turn down a few as well, simply because of the fact that we're busy. However, please register online and subscribe to job alerts, because when you do that, you get alerted as soon as a role becomes available, and we can reach out to you then.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I hope so.
Okay, another question. How long before you contact the recruiter if no response is received? I think they're asking, after an interview, how long do you wait before you contact the recruiter if you haven't heard anything?
Oh boy, I feel bad when I hear this question, because there are so many candidates that I have not been able to reach out to. It can be a very difficult process. However, set clear expectations from the interview. Ask when will they update you? Will they update you regardless of the outcome? Or if you can follow up. If they say yes, you can follow up. Is a week okay? Is 2 weeks okay? Ask them that, because usually a recruiter doesn't want to reach out to a candidate and tell them we're not moving you forward until they have closed the recruiting project, because we're not sure what will happen. Remember, you have candidate A, B, C, and D, 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd have 5 candidates and you say, okay, this is the top candidate. But if the top one doesn't work out, then I have this one, that one, that one, that one. So because of that, the recruiter tends to respond or reach out when the process has been completed, or so I would hope. Because they don't want to reach out to you and tell you, well, we're not moving ahead. And then they have to call you back and say, you know what, sorry, we want to go ahead with you, right? So they tend to wait until the candidate has accepted the offer, is going to start and everything, and then they would have reached out to everybody. But you can reach out, but ask for deadline and time frame.
Okay, thank you. The next question, is it okay to leave off professional experience from your resume, or is it considered deceitful?
That is a great question. That is a great question. It is, I don't think it will be considered deceitful, because you must tweak your resume to the role that you are applying to. But I would want to ask you, why do you, it is the why for me. Why do you want to remove it? Are you trying to cover up something? Are you trying to leave something deliberately out? Or do you believe that it doesn't add value? If it doesn't add value to the role that you are applying to, you can remove it, or you don't have to remove it. You can minimize the impact, right, of that role that you're trying to remove. So rather than listing out fully everything that you have done there, you could probably still put the title. Don't forget, the title has to be there, the company has to be there, and the date. Title, right? Because I need to know what's the title, what role, and I don't want to be ifing and guessing and doing all of that, right? So be mindful of that as well, but it is the why. Most job seekers or recruiters, I say, will tend to not, as I mentioned earlier, not want to move you forward if they believe that they cannot assess your skill sets or experience fully enough, or if you have something hiding. So be mindful of that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You have provided us with so much insight, and based on the comments I'm seeing, I know that a lot of persons are going to take away quite a lot that could enhance their career, their resumes, the interview, and the job search, definitely. So I'm going to wrap up with this final question from the chat. Is it okay to say that boredom is the reason for wanting a change in career?
Boredom. That's in the interview. I mean, you could say that, but not in that way. There are many ways you could say that. Many ways you could say that, but not in that way. The recruiter probably look at you in a funny way, right? So you don't want to say, I'm bored, that's why. But what you want to say is that you are seeking for more challenging opportunity. You don't feel that you are utilizing your skill sets as much as you should. Okay, so that's what you want to say, rather than just boredom, because boredom, though it is truthful, but it is bland, and it needs a little bit more depth, I think, to why are you bored. So the question again is, why are you bored, right? and not just you're not just bored because of just being bored, right? It is the why behind it. Are you bored because you're not being challenged and all of that? So I think that's what you have to look at.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And, for those persons who were not on when I did the introduction, I just wanted to go through to just remind us that Mr. Andrew Fehrman is the CEO of Talent Box Caribbean, which is a boutique executive search and recruitment process outsourcing firm. They're specializing in recruitment marketing, headhunting services, and job seeker support. His experience spans over 8 years, and he has recruited for a lot of our local brands such as Kingston Wharves Limited, Toyota Jamaica, Stationery and Office Supplies, Blue Dot Insights, Heart Institute of the Caribbean, Carrie Chris, Conduent, Continuum, Ernst and Young Jamaica, Active Home Center, Nissan, Rainforest Seafoods, PA Benjamins, and for clients as far as Grand Cayman, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, the Bahamas, and the United Kingdom. With this vast experience, we are happy today to be able to have provided you with the expertise of Mr. Andrew Fehrman. And I'll just ask you, Andrew, if you have any final words for us on the way forward. What are the things that we should be looking at, focusing on for 2022? And what services does Talent Box offer that we could benefit from if we're job seekers or we just want to optimize our career?
Great, thank you so much, Sasha B. So again, for all those, you can check me out on LinkedIn. You will find me there every time, all the day, every day. At Andrew K. Fehrman, the headhunter. I call myself the recruiting tycoon. I mean, you have to have some fun, right? So follow me on LinkedIn. But also, most importantly, register on the platform. Now, when you register, you have an account. You can make your account private. You can make it public. If you make it private, a recruiter will not be able to view your account, right? Nobody will be able to view it. When you make it public, they can log in, they can search. So not only will they just post a job and wait for you to apply, they can log in because the employers will get an account. They log in, they can search for candidates, right? And reach out to you and invite you to apply to a role. We've assisted a number of candidates to fill roles, right? In fact, we're hiring for Active Home Center as it is now in Montego Bay and in Kingston. We're looking for customer service reps in Montego Bay, dispatchers. So, I mean, if you have friends in Montego Bay that's looking for a role in the retail space, you need to send them to the site. We also have roles in Kingston as well as for Active Home Center. We have a lot of other roles in Kingston and in Montego Bay. So it's best that you have a professional resume uploaded. We're always available on chat on the website from 9 to 5, as well as you can call our jobs hotline at 960-0066. And someone will assist you because we're trying to create an experience. So if you see a role that's listed on the site and you need some questions to be answered, you can definitely reach out to us and we'll ensure that your questions are answered even before you apply to the role. That's the difference that we bring. We do not charge candidates because we are not an employment agency. We are an RPO. We work completely with the employers, Okay, so again, go ahead and follow me. I'm not sure how many of you are online here, but I want to see all of you logging on my side, right? I want the developer to reach out to me to say, Andrew, listen, the site has crashed because we have too many people on it. And we get it back up. Not crashed, but we have a lot of people on it, right? And I want all of you to go follow me on LinkedIn and also YouTube. Follow us on YouTube as well. There's some useful content there. We are coming back in 2021 with Talking Talent every Wednesday. And this is where we delve deeper with industry experts around recruitment, HR, and job seeker support and career transitioning. Okay. So again, that's it for me. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoy talking to you. I hope you have enjoyed it, and share your feedback. Go on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever, and share your feedback. Back over to you, Sashini.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And you know, I would ask everyone in the chat to give me some virtual applause because we are thoroughly informed today, and 2022 can certainly be our year as it speaks to our career and the path that we're going to take to ensure that we are doing the best we can. So I want to thank you, and I want to encourage you all to go ahead and follow Andrew on the various platforms. I've shared all his social media handles in the chat so that you can follow him and follow Talent Box. We are going to be working closely, hopefully, with Andrew, because Andrew, on this program, we have persons that are located in every single parish in Jamaica. And a lot of persons on the program are in fact looking for jobs or, you know, just wanting to get out there. So whenever you have positions available or you would like to share with us, and we will share with the persons that we have on the program, certainly.
Awesome.
So
Yes.
on behalf of One-on-One Educational Services and Flow Foundation and the Training for Professionals program, we want to thank you so much for delivering a superb webinar. The information you've given us has been well received. The feedback I will continue to share with you, but thank you so much once again from the learners, the hundreds of persons that have signed on. They thank you and I thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right. Bye, everyone.